You could
No,
mention
just
him.
I'll mention
Mention
Friday
him.
the 13th.
Yeah, you could mention just nothing else related.
Yeah.
All right, we're going live. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Here we go. You can now, oh, look at that. We can now pin your chats. You can now pin a message to the top of your live chat for readers to read. Click any message to pin it. Use the options menu to pin it. So again, you can look at that in the chat if you want to pin your message. If you want to support our channel, you can also do that as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the 5 top superstitions and Friday the 13th. And with me today, of course, is my buddy and former FBI agent, Andrew Bringle. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, Carlos, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I could not be better. I mean, it's a little chilly today. We're enjoying, like a lot of the nation, nice temperate weather for this time of year. And the last couple of days, we got a blast of Arctic air. So it's 50 degrees outside. I had to pull my little jacket off, but now I'm tucked in my little office here with the heater going, and I'm ready to discuss, I think, a fascinating topic: superstitions and Friday the 13th. How appropriate is that?
Absolutely. And folks, if you're already, I see some people are already joining us. We're actually going to be looking not just the top 5 superstitions, but also the psychology behind them. Why do people believe in superstitions? What does it do
That's
for
interesting.
us?
It's great.
Go ahead,
Great.
Andy, take it away.
Well, I was going to say it's a great topic because, from the beginning of time, man has tried to answer the question of why. So those things that are unexplainable. So we want to know in why things happen, and we want to have some control in our lives. So if we can attach bad luck to a superstition, to a day, or to an object, an icon, then we can avoid those things. It's in our power to avoid walking underneath the ladder, for example, or breaking a mirror, for example. So this goes back to ancient man, because we have a lot of things in our lives that are simply unexplainable. And of course, it's the spawn of religion and faith, that we believe in things that we can't see, we can't touch. And this is the same kind of thing, that it's a grasp for man in their mind to be able to control the environment at some extent around them. And what we're balancing here is good luck, quote unquote, with bad luck, fortune, basically, and how fate smiles down upon us. So we do things, rituals, if you will, that we think will give us good luck, and we try to avoid things that give us bad luck. So Friday the 13th is a day that is considered a bad luck day. Things that happen to a lot of people are bad because of Friday the 13th. We're going to kind of go into how that came about historically. And there's a lot of history in this folklore in terms of attachments to bad luck. In my household, we call it BL. BL is Bringle luck. And Bringle luck generally is not good luck, right? And so when something breaks, an appliance or something, we just chalk it up to BL. It's just bad Bringle luck. But Friday the 13th is a day of caution for a lot of people. And while most of us don't want to admit that we're superstitious, we all want to maintain this level of control in our lives. And this includes answering the question of why, as I mentioned earlier. So people of faith may think of a bad patch of luck as God's will, and they may pray for God's goodwill. But in the secular world, bad luck is blamed on umbrellas and cats and getting a haircut, or not wishing somebody a blessing after they sneeze. And there's a historical reference to most of these things that we consider bad or superstitiously think are bad luck. As a former baseball player, Carlos, I used to claim I wasn't superstitious, but I still found myself going through various rituals that brought me what I thought was good luck or warded off bad luck. So if I was hitting the ball well in several games, I wouldn't clean my socks. I'd wear the same dirty socks game after game until my hitting streak ended, which in my case was usually no more than a game or two. Even today, when I watch my beloved Atlanta Braves and they're up at the plate, they're batting, I will switch the channel, right? I'll switch just to one channel over between each pitch, because my experience has been when I divert my attention from the game, the Braves do better. And so I'll play this game of luck. It's not superstition, but I will change the channel and then turn back. And then when the Braves get a hit, I chalk it up to me actually changing the channel. And because I think it brings them good luck. So where do these superstitions come from? And how are they so ingrained in our culture that many of us have either heard of them and many of us actually follow them? So today we're going to explore, as you mentioned, my top 5 superstitions, but we're going to, if we have time, we're going to go into 5 more. So really, let's think of this as the top 10 superstitions and where they came from. So let's start with my number 1, the number itself, Friday the 13th. The date inspired a horror movie. It's about a homicidal hockey masked guy, Jason, and in a movie called Friday the 13th. And it actually, there's a term for being fearful of this day, and I'm going to mispronounce it. You can try with
spell it out for the listeners too. If you're watching, actually, you can see the term. I'm going to put it on the chat line. And by the way, folks, if you have your own superstitions, share them with us and see what they are. Go ahead,
I'm
Andy.
curious if they share the same ones we're going to list. But all right, so if you fear Friday the 13th, then you suffer from paraskiva skiki diki trypophobia.
Yeah, good luck, pal.
Which is defined as a persistent, irrational fear of Friday the 13th. Of course, every year has at least one Friday the 13th. That's a fun fact. And every year can have up to 3. And no surprise, 2020 had 2. We had one back in March, and then we're experiencing one today. Good news for 2021. There's only going to be one Friday the 13th, and it's in August. So avoid August 2021, and I think you'll be in good shape if you're suspicious about Friday the 13th. Now, the folklore is that if you are superstitious about Friday the 13th, and you can actually pronounce the term paraskidiphobia, if you can pronounce it correctly, then it will cure you of your phobia. Okay?
Wow, you deserve it.
So yeah, maybe we should all try that. So if Friday the 13th is troubling to you, here are the top 5 superstitions that may cause you some alarm. It's bad luck to open an umbrella indoors. Now, where do you think that might come from? It comes from, like a lot of these superstitions, from ancient times, ancient ages, including the Middle Ages. But in this one, it goes all the way back to ancient Egyptian times. These superstitions that surrounded the pharaohs and the sunshades that they were used. And historians think that it was a warning against unfurling umbrellas inside their homes. But other historians trace it back to the Victorian era in England. And the reason for that, according to a historian named Harper, in a book he wrote in 1989, along with Charles Panetti, that in 18th century London, it was common to have a metal spiked waterproof umbrella. These were the invention of what we consider the modern umbrella. And these were common every day in London in the back in the Victorian era. And these waterproof umbrellas, which are very common, had these rigid spikes on their that kept them open and closed. And if you opened one indoors, particularly if it was tight space, the spring in them, which was sometimes very faulty, could seriously injure an adult or a child, or shatter, fragile objects. So the result of these accidents caused people to consider opening an umbrella indoors bad luck, because bad things would happen. Somebody would get an eye poked out, or a piece of porcelain would break. So even a minor accident could provoke unpleasant words and minor quarrels. And so the idea that you open an umbrella inside became a superstition to avoid that behavior. Okay? Again, the ability and the opportunity to avoid something bad happening spawned this particular suspicion or superstition. Another one.
Folks, if you're watching, make sure to go ahead and chat down if you have any superstitions yourself. Maybe you know some. I'll discuss some later, some of the ones I've heard over the years, some of the ones you might have. And we'll talk about those. But Andy, what was number 2?
Well, first of all, I've been guilty of opening umbrellas indoors, and I got a 5-year-old, and she has no problems, and I haven't seen any bad luck associated with it. For me, that's not a big one. But this next one is something that I do try to avoid, and that is it's bad luck to walk underneath a ladder, particularly a leaning ladder.
Why is that?
Interest. Well, but it's got an interesting history. It goes back 5,000 years to ancient Egypt. Remember, back in that era, the ancient Egyptians would worship icons and various gods. And one of the icons that they worshiped was the pyramid. So, they created the pyramids, right? And the reason they thought the pyramid was spiritual was because it was a triangle that created a triad. And this triad that was a trinity that represented their gods, their 3 gods, right? So to them, if you walked under a ladder up against a pyramid presented itself as a pyramid, as a triangle. And to them, this represented the trinity of the gods. So passing through it desecrated the gods. Now, what's interesting about this particular superstition is that centuries later, so 100 years later, Jesus Christ and the Christians usurped the superstition, interpreting it as the light in Christ's death. The ladder rested against the crucifix, became a symbol of wickedness, betrayal, and death. So walking under a ladder courted misfortune. Again, it represented the Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So if you walked through a ladder, you were in league with the devil. So that's how it evolved in ancient biblical times. And then again, it took a swing in the 1600s during the Middle Ages. If you walked under a ladder, it would lead to your own hanging, literally. Because in the 1600s, England would force a criminal to walk under a ladder on their way to the gallows. So naturally, people extracted that and said, I'm going to avoid walking under a ladder because I don't want to be hung by my neck during this medieval period. The good news is that if you were a condemned prisoner and you walked under a ladder by mistake, I'm sorry, if you were a condemned prisoner, you were screwed. But if you weren't a condemned prisoner and you accidentally walked under a ladder, you could avoid having bad luck by saying bread and butter as you walked under the ladder. But if you
I want to stop for 1 second here. We have a comment. Shamir Mintur says, greetings, Shamir. Shamir, if you have any superstitions you want to share, we'd love to have you see those in the chat. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, so as I was saying, so if you forget to say bread and butter as you're walking under the ladder, then you can go and cross your fingers until you see a dog. If you see a dog, somehow the dog reverses the bad mojo. So again, people put conditions on these superstitions in order to get the outcomes that they're looking for, because psychologically we're looking for that need to control our environments, at least a little bit. Number 3 on my hit parade, a broken mirror gives you bad luck. So if you probably heard that if you break a mirror, you get 7 years of bad luck, and wondered where the heck did that come from and why 7 years, right? In ancient Greece, it was common for people to consult mirror seers. They were called mirror seers, and these mirror seers were they were fortune tellers. And what they would do, the mirror seer would analyze your reflection in a mirror. According to a historian, Milton Goldsmith, and he wrote a book back in 1918 called Signs, Omens, and Superstitions. The mirror seer would use a process called divination. Divination is fortune telling, just another fancy term for fortune telling. But they did this through glass or a mirror or water. So the fortune teller would use a mirror, and the process was called captromancy. And the mirror was dipped into the water. And if a sick person looked at the glass, and if the image appeared distorted, he would die. If it was clear after water was put on the glass and it looked clear, they would live. So like a lot of these superstitions, it adapted over the centuries. In the 1st century AD, Roman legionnaires added a caveat to the superstition. At the time, the Romans believed that a human's health changed every 7 years. So we had a 7-year cycle. Now, I've been asked whether that 7-year cycle is now represented by the 7 years to 1 year that a dog ages compared to a human. I have no clue. But the Romans thought that in 7 years, you recycled your life. unless you broke a mirror. If you broke a mirror, it disrupted the link between you and your inner self. And the distorted image resulted in ill health and misfortune for guess how many years? 7 years.
7 years.
Your next cycle of life. The lesson learned there, Carlos, is handle your mirrors with care, right?
Absolutely. And if I can add some stuff to you talked a lot about control and the psychology, folks. Remember, a lot of these superstitions happened during a time when people really didn't have a good understanding of science. They didn't understand what was going on with weather changes. I'm talking about 2,000, 3,000 years ago when they were trying to explain why all of a sudden we had less sunlight during the winter times, right? They created the winter solstice. What was going on here? Why did we go for having sunlight throughout the summer and all of a sudden shrinking down? A lot of people really didn't have an idea of what was happening. Hello, we got someone saying hello here too. Hello,
Yeah.
and happy Veterans Day if either of you served. Did you serve, Andy? I can't remember if you served or not. Oh, I'm losing your sound here, Andy. Hello, you haven't accessed YouTube in a year. Oh, well, welcome back. Hopefully you'll enjoy this channel. Check out other videos. By the way, folks, you can check out some of our other videos as well. Check out our playlist. Are you still back, Andy? It looks like you lost your audio.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Got you now.
There you go. Good old technology.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and go to your fourth one, I think it is, spilling salt, and then we'll wrap up at number 5, knock on wood.
I think that was number 4. Here we go. When you spill salt, toss some over your left shoulder to avoid bad luck. Now, I heard this since I was a kid, right? And again, like a lot of these superstitions, I'll give you one that actually I do follow. I guess I am a little bit superstitious now that I think about it. Have you ever heard the one where if you have an eyelash on your face and you take the eyelash and you blow it off your finger and make a wish that wish could come true, right? A superstition that good luck might happen. So in this one, it's similar. This one here, if you have spilled salt, you toss some over your left shoulder, it gives you good luck or avoids the bad luck. Anyway, knocking over salt is thought to lead to bad luck on any day, especially on Friday the 13th. But it started back 2,500 BC. I'm sorry, 3,500 BC is when this superstition originated. And it's an interesting origin because spilling salt has been considered unlucky for thousands of years. And the reason is the ancient Sumerians first took to nullifying bad luck through spilled salt by throwing a pinch over their left shoulder. It became a ritual among the Egyptians, the Assyrians, and later the Greeks. So it just simply was, if you take a pinch of salt, throw it over your left shoulder, you could have some good luck. The superstition ultimately reflected how much people prized and still prize the salt as seasoning. It was, one of the original seasonings for food, and it kept foods from spoiling as well, which was critical because people died, as you mentioned, they couldn't explain why people died after eating bad meat, for example, and salt somehow made it cured so that the meat would last longer and they wouldn't die from food poisoning. And so it took on this sort of mythological type of power. The etymology of the word salary, right, shows how highly we value salt. According to historian Panetti in his book, he wrote that a Roman writer by the name of Petronius in Satricon originated the term "not worth his salt" as criticism for Roman soldiers who were given special allowances for salt rations, and it was called salarium or salt money. So it's the origination of the word salary. The word salary comes from the term salarium, which was the term they used for giving salt rations to Roman soldiers. I thought that was pretty interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. Number 5 on the hit parade, before we get to the honorable mentions, is knocking on wood. How many times you said, knock on wood? I guess I really am. Now that I think about it, I'm really superstitious. I do that all the time, knock on wood. I usually do this, knock on wood. And it almost in passing without really giving it much thought. A historian said that this might be the most prevalent superstitious custom in the United States. Its origin is very much in doubt. There's not a lot of consensus as to where the beginnings of knock on wood came about as a means of good luck. but some attribute it to ancient religious rites of touching a crucifix, which makes sense, right? I do that when I pray. I have a wooden cross and I touch it. Not necessarily as good luck, but just in my belief that it gets me a little closer to Jesus Christ. But they used to touch a crucifix when they took an oath of office. Before that, they had the written Bible, they would touch a crucifix and then take an oath. This historian Goldsmith wrote that among the ignorant peasants of Europe, it may have had its beginning in the habit of knocking loudly before entering a room to get the evil spirits out. So it may have then led to people knocking on doors to enter a room. But the original purpose was to tell the evil spirits to leave and get out. I thought that was pretty interesting history. And again, most of these superstitions have historical roots. You want to go into some of the honorable mention, or you want to mention some of the ones we're getting from our listening audience?
No, actually, what I want to do is cover the last few minutes here we have about the psychology of, again, a little bit more about people will do this thing, why people have superstitions. So we talked a little bit about control. People have a lack of control in their life. And they look for superstitions, also trying to explain things they don't have a meaning for. It's kind of funny because I used to relate it a lot to superhero movies. People have this desire for something that transcends normal human power, right? So we have this fascination with Batman. He's a typical human being, yet he has kind of these super extraordinary powers, not to the degree of a Superman, but yet he can overcome crime that the regular police can't. There's never a mention of FBI for some reason, or CIA when it comes to superhero movies.
We don't have any superpowers.
Yeah, I guess they really don't have any power, I guess, according to superhero movies. But the law enforcement, local law enforcement, is really just incapacitated against the Joker or against Bane or anybody like that. So they have to have this transcending power of a Batman. And you can see this again with superstitions, right? They're looking for something that can protect them from evil, but it has to go beyond their own capability. So if I can avoid a ladder, if I can throw salt, I can overcome these supernatural evil forces with this superstition or with this motion. Go ahead. Oop, you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay. So a couple years back, I wrote a chapter in this book. I'll do a shameless plug real quick. So I wrote a chapter in this book called Blood Sacrifices, Violent Non-State Actors, Dark Magical Religious Activities. It was edited by Robert J. Bunker. And the book is really about how men go through various rituals before they commit violent acts, wars, like the Indians would have a war dance and so forth and so forth like that. It goes to your point in terms of psychology. We want to have some control over our behaviors in this world that encompasses a lot of nonsensical actions. I call it the anthill theory, because an ant could be walking on the sidewalk, minding his own business, enjoying the sunny day, and here comes a human's big foot, it done. Ant's gone. And we're no different than the ant, metaphorically, because we can be loving life, driving down the road, and get sideswiped by an 18-wheeler, done, like the ant. So we try to look for things to explain it. In our religion, we say, as I mentioned earlier, is God's will. In the 6th century AD, Pope Gregory the Great had an edict for the people, because in Italy they were being wiped out by a plague, a flu, oddly enough, and this terrible pestilence was spreading through Italy at rapid rate. The first symptoms were severe chronic sneezing, and so when somebody sneezed, Pope Gregory, his followers, they should wish that person a blessing. God bless you. So the origins of when someone sneezes, and by the way, you don't even have to be a religious person. Secular people use this phrase. When somebody sneezes, you wish them God bless you. And Pope Gregory said that if there's nobody else around and you sneeze yourself, that he recommended that you say a prayer for yourself and say, God help me. So it was again a disease, a new not how to prevent or cure. And so the human reaction was to existentially ask God for forgiveness or blessing to help them overcome this malady, this illness that might kill them.
And I want to
So
make this one
always, God
comment.
bless you is how that happens with the sneeze. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, good points. I want to make this one comment for the audience too. Again, we'll highlight next week's show in a second, but I also want to tell people too about interesting comments about religion. I'm looking at this with William James, the philosopher, psychologist, kind of look at it in regards to the functionality of religion. A lot of people would say that's how we view God, right? You got these supernatural powers to be able to handle these things that are beyond our ability as humans to our limited powers. Now, this is William James. I'm just looking at the functionality, but before we get into any more of that, what I did want to mention, folks, is next week, I want to give you the lineup for next week as we get ready to taper off here in our interview today with Andrew Bringle. You can find out at Behavioral Science Unit LLC.com, Behavioral Science Unit LLC.com. Thank everyone for watching. Next week's lineup, we got Frank von Hippel. He's going to be talking how chemicals influenced us throughout history. Doesn't sound super exciting, but trust me, when you hear it, he'd be kind of blew my mind. Nigel West, who's got several books on espionage, he's going to be talking to us about his latest books on spies and double agents. Should be a lot of fun. Professor David Levy will be here Wednesday to talk about critical thinking. Andy comes back next Thursday as we talk about why people are leaving the cities. I think it is. I don't know if we decided that or not. We're looking at
Yeah, I
different
think
topics.
we're going to look at ex-migration, people leaving big cities. It's not just big taxes or big government. There's a lot of reasons why people are moving around the United States. Before we get to that, I want to mention a couple that I think are fairly interesting. One is the black cat superstition, because it actually started as
You're breaking up again.
It was an English king, Charles I, and he loved black cats, particularly one black cat that he treasured. The black cat died, and he said that all his good luck was gone. That was probably cemented because the next day he was arrested for treason and killed. So it became a symbol of bad luck to see a black cat. And then it evolved to early pilgrims in the United States where they associated black cats with witches. Another one that I think
You're breaking up again.
Well, that's my good old internet.
I don't know.
I'll wrap it up by saying there's a couple other ones. One is the horseshoe. Hanging a horseshoe at your door upside down was meant to capture good luck, and it was thought to ward off witches because witches were afraid of horses. And then my favorite, probably on the honorable mention list, is avoiding.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't know why you go in. You're going in and out every time you get ready to mention it. You go out.
Yeah, probably because when I get close to the sun, I'm getting too close to the sun, I'm burning up. But here we go. How about this? Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. So
It's like a Verizon commercial, isn't it, folks? Go ahead.
the last one I'll mention, Carlos, is getting your haircut on Friday the 13th. Superstition is that it will result in the death of a family member, and that you should avoid combing your hair on Friday the 13th because if a bird uses your fallen locks to build a nest, you may go bald. So, you don't see me. I don't comb my hair on Friday the 13th.
There you go. So be careful out there, folks. Excellent stuff, Andy. Really fun. Talk about those top 5 superstitions. We looked a little bit of the psychology of it. I forgot to mention next Friday, we will have journalist Ty Colt. She wrote a book on why saturated fat got the bad rap. So we'll be looking at that next Friday. Saturated fat. Might be kind of happy if you like enjoying your steak and bacon. Might be happy what she has to say. Andy, I think that's about it for us today.
Well, that sun follows me no matter where I go, does it?
Yeah, it is kind of hunting.
It's my sunny disposition. Yeah, I just want to leave our audience with these final words. Avoid a crack. You don't want to break your mommy's back. And I wish everybody the best of luck and God's blessing.
All right, everybody. Thanks again so much for joining us. Thanks for those who chatted on the chat line. We appreciate you being over here and watching our show again next week, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be on. Our lineup will be there. Go check out Andy too at Behavioral Science Unit. LLC.com. Thanks, everyone. If you want to listen to any of my podcasts, go down below.
Yeah, you put it on. All right. Thanks, Carlos. I appreciate it.
And if you want to check out the links right below on the description, you can check out all our podcasts as well.
Awesome.
thanks again, everyone.
Enjoy
Have a
your
good
weekend.